Ladies and gentlemen, let us now begin the online seminar of the 14th Foodpolis International Conference. Good afternoon. Welcome to the Foodpolis online seminar. My name is Jessica and it is my greatest pleasure to serve as the MC of today's event. Under the theme of Future Foods, the Era of Choice and Customization, we'll have four presentations on four different topics of future food trend, alternative food, senior-friendly food, and eco-friendly food. Today's seminar is a pre-event of the annual Foodpolis International Conference. The international conference will be held on November 22nd in relation to the Food Week 2024. And I would like to ask your continuous support and also the interest to the Food Industry Promotional Agency of Korea, even after today's event. So first, I would like to have President Kim Myung-jae of the Food Industry Promotional Agency of Korea to deliver his welcoming remark, and let us watch his video together.
Hello everyone, I am Kim Young-jae, President of the Food Industry Promotional Agency of Korea. I sincerely welcome all participants to the Food Policy International online seminar. I would especially like to thank the speakers who kindly agreed to give lectures and the participants watching us from around the world. Thank you very much. The export value of Korean agriculture and the food products has been increasing for the 8 consecutive years. Last year, the export value of the agriculture and the food products under the K Plus reached 9.16 billion US dollars. As a result, the K Food Plus, encompassing the agriculture, food, and the related industry, has established itself as a major export industry of South Korea. These advancements were made possible thanks to the relentless efforts of those in the Korean agricultural and food industry. One example of these efforts is predicting and preparing for the future trend in the food market by analyzing and preparing for various factors such as changes in household composition, eating habits, safety issue, and the development of the food technology. The Korean food market has achieved remarkable growth in recent years. One of the major recent trends is the development of the customized food for the elderly people in response to rapidly aging global population. The development of the senior-friendly foods that are both nutritious and easy to consume is garnering significant attention in the food industry. As the importance of overcoming the climate crisis and ensuring a sustainable food supply grows, eco-friendly and alternative foods have emerged as a new trend. Hence, it is time to embrace sustainable consumption by adopting eco-friendly process and consuming alternative meat to preserve the environment. These advancements in the industry and technology are expanding the range of choices available to consumers. Today's seminar, under the theme The Era of the Future Food Choices and Customization, aims to introduce the prospects and the trends of the future food industry and share the latest information. Taking this opportunity, I would like to thank Chairman Ross Dawson and other speakers for sharing valuable information in today's seminar. I hope all participants will stay with us till the end of the event and find useful information for your future business. I also hope that today's seminar will greatly assist in making wise choices for a better future. Thank you very much.
Welcoming messages. Moving on, Director Kim Shin-jae of Korea National Food Cluster Division at Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs will deliver his congratulatory remarks.
Hello, everyone. I'm Kim Shin-jae, head of the Korea National Food Cluster Division at the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs. First, I sincerely congratulate you on the opening of this online seminar. I deeply appreciate the efforts of the older people from the Food Industry Promotional Agency of Korea and President Kim Young-jae. I especially want to extend my thanks and welcome to Chairman Ross Dawson and all the domestic and international experts who are participating in presentation and discussion. This seminar aims to analyze the latest trend and the future development in the evolving food industry and to provide insight for the product development, focusing on senior-friendly, alternative, and eco-friendly foods. Distinguished guests. As of 2022, the Korean food industry is valued at approximately 725 trillion won and it is growing at around 9% annually. In line with the growth of the food industry, the government is focusing on nurturing future-oriented new industries such as food tech and the green bio industry to ensure that the future-oriented food industry can drive the growth in the food sector. The interest and efforts of the business, academia, and experts are needed. I hope this meaningful seminar enables food companies to learn about rapidly changing future food trends. The Ministry of Agriculture will ensure that this knowledge sharing network continues to thrive. Therefore, the Ministry plans to hold a domestic seminar on the current status of the food in September and an international conference in conjunction with the Food Week 2024 in November. We invite active interest and participation of all the stakeholders. Building upon the knowledge and experience of all the attendees here today, I hope we can identify effective alternatives for the development. Thank you very much.
Director Kim, thank you very much for the congratulatory remark. Thank you once again for the welcoming remarks and the congratulatory remark. Now let us move on to our presentation session from our four distinguished speakers. Today's online seminar provides simultaneous interpretation service, so please choose the channel according to the language of your preference. Korean and English are available. Meanwhile, once again, a short notice for the review event. We do have a review event going on among the viewers of this seminar on the official blog site and the Instagram account of the Food Industry Promotional Agency of Korea. So I would like to ask for your active participation once again. The first presentation will be delivered by Chairman Ross Dawson of Australia's Advanced Human Technologies Group. He'll present under the theme of Creating the Future of Food, and let us invite him to the screen. Good afternoon, Chairman Dawson. Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
Yeah, if you can hear me, let's proceed with the slides you have, and please,
Indeed.
the floor is yours.
So thank you very much. It's a fantastic event and a critical topic. If we think about the future of humanity, of nations, of societies, then food has to be at the center of it. So we do need to be focusing on how we can create a prosperous food industry. So if we think more generally about what is happening in the world, we can safely say that the pace of change today in 2024 has never been this fast before. And this is not just in technology, it is not just in social change, it is also in the things which are underlying and shaping the food industry. And indeed, we will never be as slow again. We are going to see more change in the food industry in the coming 5 years than we've seen in the previous 20. And this is by necessity of what it is we can do. So what I want to do quickly this afternoon is first of all look at some of the big shifts which are shaping the world of the food and food industry. Go on to look at this idea of platforms and how we can build platforms to enable the prosperous food industry. Look at some of the aspects of innovation in the food industry and creating new possibilities. And finally, the leadership that is required to take us to this prosperous future. So if we start off by thinking of the macro shifts, the big things which are changing the world, and there are many of those, and I'd like to just point to a few of these that we need to understand and think about. And more broadly, if we think about the trends that are shaping the future of food, more and more people are wanting healthier and healthier food. There is this focus, this expectation that the food we have is healthy and that it is tasty. And at the same time, we need, as an industry, to understand that how can we scale production to more people, to higher levels of proficiency, to do this efficiently in terms of using the resources we have, in terms of the sometimes limited human resources. But in both sides, whether it is the consumers of the food or the producers, this focus on sustainability in terms of impact on terms of carbon emissions and climate, of course, but also sustainability in terms of the farming practices that allow us to continue to create food that is healthy and delicious, and we can do this effectively. One of of course, the macro shifts we must understand is that the climate is shifting. And we can see in this chart, not only that that temperatures are increasing across the world, in the last year, 2023, standing up above this very concerning trend line. And in fact, every month for the last 12 months has been the hottest month on record. And this changes, of course, not just the temperature, but it changes water flow, it changes rainfall, it changes the nature of how it is that farming can be done, where it can be done, and how it is we can do that effectively. The other key trend to point to is that the expectations are rising on every front. We are getting more and more distinguished palates. We are distinguishing between flavors. We are expecting more in terms of quality, more in terms of not just the quality of our food, but also transparency in terms of the way in which practices are done, in terms of them being being positive for the climate and for, indeed the world at large, and not just in terms of the quality of the food. And the one other macro shift I would point to is simply that increasing uncertainty. And COVID made us quite clear that we cannot know when we will start to see issues in supply chains, in transport, in terms of health of food. And so food security, particularly at a national level, is more and more on the agenda. And we have to understand there will be further massive disruptions to food as we know it. So we do need to look at these macro shifts as shaping the world. Now, I would like to introduce this idea of platforms, which is fundamental across society at large, but is also particularly relevant and pertinent in the food industry. And this has been risen by the fact that we have a networked world. We have the internet as a network, technology creates networks, society is a network, organizations are networks, industries are networks, contagion and the way that spreads are networks, and food is also, if you understand the food industry, it is in fact a network of suppliers, of logistics, of flows, of the ways in which these are brought together to be able to, from the, their origins of, being able to farm and to produce food, going through to the consumer. Now, in a world of networks, the structure that is most relevant is that of a platforms. And we need to understand what is the nature of a platform. And this definition helps us to frame that, where a platform enables value to be created between participants that are not necessarily inside an organization. So you need an open infrastructure. You need to be able to have people access, to be able to have flows of information. And we need some governance as to how these things are done effectively. And we can look at this at, for example, our technology as a platform of standards. We have a number of platforms in technology which are built, our social platforms, which you are well aware of, that connect us to share information. And some of these have been very useful for amongst farmers and other people bringing food to market. And we also have our platform business models, such as your Ubers and your Spotifys and Naver and so on. Companies are becoming more and more platforms and bringing together many ways of connecting people. Cities or regions are platforms. And in fact, indeed Seoul or other cities are platforms because they enable connections between them. But what is most important is that food is a platform. And this is one of the essences to understanding how it is we can create a prosperous future of the food industry, to understand some of those. And I will give some examples of the way in which platforms can enable effective value creation across the entire food industry. And this is the idea of understanding that the food production and the food distribution, the food consumption is an ecosystem of participants, which all must collaborate so that we can work effectively together to be able to create that value. This, in essence, is the future of the food industry. So one example of this is that we start to track information across the entire supply chain from, for example, in this case, an animal who is then going through production, distribution, retailing, and critically the consumer actually becomes part of this system, where blockchain is one of the great enablers to be able to not just to be able to track information across a wide variety of participants in a system, but also to make sure that it is verifiable. You can verify that this information is correct and nobody has tampered with that information, which means that the end consumer can now have complete visibility of what has happened from the food they're eating, where it has come from, where it has gone, and many other aspects of that. There is a massive value in sharing data in agriculture. And so this actually image is from a company called Trace Genomics, which looks at the DNA within soil, the soil genomics, to analyze that and to be able to, from many, many, many different farms and different locations, to be able to give insights to any individual farmer on the genetic composition of their soil and how they can improve that to be able to increase the production, to be able to be more sustainable in their work. And there are many other initiatives around the world where many farms are creating an extraordinary amount of data today because we have sensors in the soil, of course, and to be able to share that so that production across the entire ecosystem is improved. The sharing of the data creates the value for greater efficiency, scalability, and quality of production. We are well familiar with this idea of the Internet of Things. We can also think of the Internet of Food, where we can track at any point what is happening to a particular food, where it is going, whether it has encountered different temperatures, how long it has been in storage, and to be able to monitor and understand that. Of course, helping the logistics, helping the efficiency, using that data for artificial intelligence to optimize the logistics, but also to be able to create far more visibility and transparency for the retailer and ultimately the consumer. Now, if we think about innovation, and this example just shows something what's may happen in both restaurants and kitchens, where you start to see this automation, and automation is being applied in many aspects of the food industry. So if we think more broadly about the innovation landscape, every participant in the food industry needs to be thinking about their business models and the competences they have to grow them. So if we, this uses a framework which comes from a Harvard Business Review, and I've used this to apply this to the food industry. And if we think, this idea of routine innovation, where you have an existing business model, the way in which you are currently working, and your existing competences. And this might be, for example, introducing new types of packaging, or to be able to have new products. This is all part of the regular routine innovation that happens, any participant in the food industry will well understand. But there's also the potential to push out where there are new competences which are required. And so, for example, Cargill is developing nutraceutical-based products where, in fact, eating the food is a form of medicine. It is helping address potential deficiencies in diet or to be able to address particular issues relevant to the individual. And General Mills using precision fermentation to create proteins which are identical to dairy, but not actually coming from an animal. And this is a powerful way where a new technology is be able to create foods which meet, in this case, demand from the industry and from some consumers, and being able to do that in a very effective manner. We also have disruptive business models. So using the existing competences of food creation and delivery, but being able to create a new business model. So for example, a meal subscription delivery. You may deliver food in various things, may deliver actual prepared meals in various kinds. And PepsiCo is just one example, which is choosing to go direct to consumer. So instead of through distributors, logistics, retailers, and so on, and going directly to consumer. So this is a new business model, which requires as well new competences. And there are now more different architectural structures to what food participants can do. So Nestle is using its health sciences division to create personalized nutrition services where the food is created for the individual, or a set of food products are designed for an individual and who they are and what can best serve them. And Unilever is using, for example, artificial intelligence, massive amounts of data from farms, productions, consumers, to be able to change how it develops products and change its portfolio of products and how those are produced and the ways in which these create value between each other. So this just provides some examples of the types of innovation that are required to drive the innovation in the food industry. And this includes building new business models and also requiring a set of new competences, including both technologies and of food technologies and sometimes digital technologies. Now, if we think about alternative proteins, there's of course a big rise in this. There's a forecast of $24 billion in alternative proteins in the coming by the end of the decade. And it's interesting to see that in the US, the growth has tailed off a little. It has not increasing more recently, whereas in the European Union, it is continuing to increase. This particular image, in fact, shows insect burgers. So these are burgers which mimic the protein from meat, in fact, created from insects. And there are, of course, a wide variety of different types of protein which are created from mushroom type farming, in terms of algae, in terms of insects, and of course, in terms of cultured meat, which is beginning to grow. So if we think about one of the most important technologies is that of precision fermentation. There's an array of technologies and innovations to be able to advance food production. In precision fermentation, essentially are using genetic modification in order to create products which are in fact not genetically modified. You are, for example, creating bacteria which can create proteins that are identical to meat or dairy or other products. And there are 2 points to this. One of the key points of precision fermentation is that it is highly scalable. So this can be done in very large quantities, and it is very precise. You can be extremely precise around exactly what proteins, what amino acids, other things that are being created. And this helps, for example, to be able to create the nutraceutical type products which are beneficial to the person who consumes these. Going on to that point, we have a company, Nutrigenomics, which does genetic testing of individuals for to be able to personalize the nutrition for the individual. And interesting anecdote, I was fairly recently in Saudi Arabia to speak at their Future Food Summit. So I gave a keynote where I spoke about this company, Nutrigenomics, and at the end of the session, someone came up to me and says, well, I'm the CEO of Nutrigenomics. It's a company based in Toronto, based on deep research. It comes out of the University of Toronto, and it is and so since then he offered, and I now have had my own genetic profile tested, which give me insights into the food which I should or should not be eating, and things which assess my health and support me in my fitness. And this points to a world where those people who choose to can have more and more insight into who they are individually, and so their personal profile can guide their nutrition and potentially the creation of specific foods, as I pointed out in the Nestle Health Services. One other technology which is very relevant in distribution is nano packaging, essentially the use of nanomaterials in packaging. And this, many benefits of this can extend the time where products remain fresh, that they are safe, protects them from bacteria. And in fact, sensors can be built into the nano packaging in order to be able to, for example, assess whether the temperature has gone outside a particular range and to ensure that this packaging is safe. So, there are many innovations in packaging as well as in the food production. And this is an important part of this food ecosystem of being able to create value. And I just show this video of a company called Kana, which actually doesn't exist anymore, but I think it's an interesting example of what they have done is what they call molecular food creation. Essentially on something which sits on a shelf inside a kitchen. It has these different canisters that you can put inside it, and then you can build and design your own drink and make all of the choices around that. You can then use one which others have created. And so this means that this is part of the shift to where food production could potentially be happening in the home. And this also goes this idea of 3D printing of food, and also a little bit to that idea of the automation, which I showed in the earlier video of what's happening in the home, where as we start to see more and more of these technology, the food technologies going to the home, it means that people can have fresh food, which is then prepared or brought together or created in their own home, as opposed to that happening a long way away in food production facilities or factories. Now, finally, thinking about the leadership, and I think this is critically important for this event, in thinking about Foodpolis, its role, and the Korean nation, and its ability to build a prosperous future for its food industry. So one of the frameworks which I use across a wide variety of industries, but is particularly relevant in the food industry, is essentially this framework for leadership across industries. It needs to start with a vision of what it is you are creating. Go on to think about the foundations, what it is that enables that to come to pass, the roadblocks, the paths, and the collaboration and the action. So I'd like to just go through those. So first of all, thinking about the vision. And the first, in order to be able to create a prosperous, scalable, efficient industry which creates healthy and delicious food for the Korean food industry, is to envisage that, to be able to say what is possible, what is the best possible world to be able to we could create for the Korean food industry. What does that look like? What types of foods are available? How are we ensuring that there is the resilience to external shocks? How are we ensuring that there is as nutritious as possible? How we make sure that the distribution is putting hands that, how do we ensure that there is as little waste as possible? What is that vision for what that could be, the best possible? Then thinking about what are the foundations to that? What are the institutions? Foodpolis Korea, of course, existing food industries. What are the business models? What are the platforms which can connect the people? What are the systems that will enable this vision? And is there anything which is missing now? Things which are not there, which need to be there in order to be able to create the vision which you can imagine for this highly prosperous future for the Korean food industry. But at the same time, you also need to recognize the roadblocks. There's many things which are blocking the potential. These could be existing structures, they could be they could be regulations, they could be consumer attitudes. There's a whole array of, or simply just existing structures, for example, for logistics or distribution. So we need to recognize what are these blocks and understand, think about how it is we can remove or bypass these blocks. So, and from that, thinking about what are the pathways. We've got a vision, we can understand that, we can see the foundations we want, we can understand the roadblocks, and think about, well, what are the paths? How can we get from where we are now in order to be able to create that? What is feasible? What are the milestones which will tell us that we are on track to move us towards our positive vision? But the critical part and I think this is the role of Foodpolis Career and this event as well, is the collaboration. And this goes to my earlier point around the platforms, where if we have the platforms that enable the connections, enable value creation across an entire ecosystem, then we can say, well, this is the collaboration. These are the people that need to collaborate, how it is we can support that. And of course, we finally need to be thinking about the action that is created needs to be done in order to move towards that vision for the potential of the Korean food industry. And coming back to thinking about what I just earlier discussed, in understanding the macro shifts that are shaping the future of the food industry, in understanding the nature of the platforms which are intrinsic to the flows of value and data and information and food across the industry, and the innovations that are possible and which can drive the future of the food industry. So, I think the words of James Cass are very relevant in this context. The finite players play within boundaries and the infinite players play with boundaries. And so to create this vision of a prosperous, incredibly prosperous future for the Korean food industry, we need to play with the boundaries of what has been done in the past and to be able to create new possibilities for the shape of the food industry, which can create that. And I think that we are really at the dawn of a new era. And it's delighted to be part of an initiative, an organization, an event, which is all about creating an extraordinary future for the Korean food industry. So thank you for your time and attention. I think we might have some time for some questions and very happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Thank you, Chairman Dawson, for your thoughtful keynote presentation. So for those who have questions regarding the presentation, please leave your questions on the chat. And I do see a number of questions coming up from the chat room. And are we okay to proceed to the Q&A session?
Yes, certainly.
Then let us have a question from Professor Choi Han-seok of Korea National University of Agriculture and Fisheries. Good afternoon, Professor Choi.
네, 안녕하세요.
Hello, good afternoon.
Your question.
저는
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. When I have expertise about food processing. And first of all, I'd like to extend my sincere thanks to the share, the excellent ideas and insightful opinions about food industry. So this is a meaningful occasion indeed. And as you introduced in the presentation, we are experiencing very fast the changes in our society. It is very difficult to catch up the changing and the technologies. So, well, I teach new technologies to students, and I'm very busy to catch up new changes. So I fully agree with what you shared in the presentation, and I believe we are actually pursuing new changes. So my question is the follow. So you introduce various issues. Which of the issues discussed today is the most realistic and hold the highest potential for future developments? Could you share your opinions about that?
Certainly. Thank you. Thank you for your feedback and comment. I think the most important single thing is the sharing of data and information across the food industry. And that goes from the agriculture, so the sharing of data across agriculture, the sharing of data across food, data and information and knowledge across the production sector, the enable efficiencies in the logistics through the sharing of data and information are there. And finally, and most importantly, that all of this data and information is available to the end consumer in ways that are easily available and help them to be able to make better decisions. Because ultimately, of course, it is the people who are consuming the food that need that information, but those platforms that enable that sharing of data and information, I believe, will be the single most important thing in creating a prosperous food industry.
Okay, I hope that answered to the question. And thank you for the question and the answer once again. And thank you very much, Chairman Dawson, for predicting the changes of future food industry and suggesting our path forward. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Yes, so moving on to the second presentation, which is about senior-friendly food products. We have Mr. Matthias Kück, who is the CEO of Biozoon of Germany, and he'll present about smooth food, modern nutritional concept for frail and elderly people. Let's invite him to deliver his lecture. Good afternoon, Mr. Kück. Can you hear me?
Good afternoon. Hello.
Yeah, how's the weather there?
It's cold over here, only 13 degrees and rainy.
Wow, it's so scorching hot and humid in Korea, so we're kind of jealous. So, if you are ready, can you please share the screen and share the slides and proceed with your presentation?
Yes, I shared the screen already. You should see my screen.
Please proceed with your presentation.
Okay. Yeah, so thank you very much for inviting me to present this nutrition concept to this broad audience. And by coincidence, I'm expecting this afternoon visitors from Korea who wanted to collaborate with us in the implementation of this nutrition concept in Korea. So we have a 2 days session in the kitchen where we are presenting this nutritional concept in theory and in practice. And we'll see maybe by the end of this year, we will implement smooth food in Korea. So smooth food stands for soft food. This is a nutrition concept for people who have swallowing and chewing disorders. Let me say one word to our company. So we are located very close to Hamburg, which most of you will know probably. And Bremerhaven is the city with the second largest port in Germany. We are 25 people working in the company and producing and processing only powders, food powders. We are offering, besides our own products, we are offering also third-party production. What is important that one has to distinguish between chewing and swallowing problems. Because the swallowing problems can have a severe impact on the health situation of elderly. So chewing difficulties or disorders are often symptoms lie in the teeth or the oral cavity, whereas swallowing disorders are results of certain diseases such as dementia, Alzheimer, cancer, and so on. So what people often do not recognize is that we swallow in average up to 2,000 times per day, mostly unrecognized. For us, it's the healthy people, it is a natural process as long as it functions. However, when this process does, I will go back just a second. However, when this process is impaired, the swallowing disorders can lead to the fact that food, instead of going into the stomach, enters into the lung and accumulates there. You can see there is this trachea will be triggered by the reflux, and when this does not function and does not close in time, there's the danger is that food accumulates in the lung, and one can develop pneumonia as a result of this. And dysphagia, as this disease is called, concerns much more people than somebody would estimate. It's around 500 million people around the world which are supposed to suffer from dysphagia. And these people need to have special food prepared. As I said before, dysphagia is not often recognized as such. But continuous coughing throughout the day is already a serious symptom that there is a problem. So if a person coughs only once in the morning, once in the afternoon, not. But if this is a continuous process, it's for sure that there's something wrong with the swallowing process. And this means eat and drinking for the people concerned becomes hard labor. And the consequences of undiagnosed dysphagia can be very serious. Of course, it impairs the quality of life because the pleasure of eating and drinking is lost. So eating and drinking is combined with a kind of fear. Because people, as a result, people often refuse to eat and drink for the fear of choking and suffocating, which can lead to weight loss and malnutrition. Something which is very widespread among the elderly in particular is the dehydration. And this can be also be a result that the people drink too less because drinking is associated with pain because of the swallowing problems. So as I said before, if the protective reflexes such as swallowing does not function or absent, an aspiration pneumonia can appear and food enters into the trachea. Therefore, persons with dysphagia are often considered above average from malnutrition, and the deaths of people with undiagnosed malnutrition because of swallowing problems is the most undiagnosed death case in Germany. One estimates that 10% of the people who die in elderly homes die because of aspiration pneumonia caused by dysphagia. So I know from the discussions I had with some colleagues of you at the booth in Essen in Germany, where I meet you, and as well as with discussion of the company who visits us today, that the development of the senior care is at its infancy in Korea. So, but from experience, I can tell you that the senior home or a retirement home is the last place for the people before they the last stage of their life, and therefore meals in retirement homes are important part of the social participation. When you go into a care home, people ask already at breakfast what will be presented for the main course and for dinner. The communal meals are important anchor point in the residents' daily routine. So that is a motivation for them to live. And in particular, for the people concerned from dysphagia, it is important that they get this, ideally the identical food as normal eaters, but just with a modified texture. So I don't know if this is already popular in Korea. In Germany, it's very at the beginning, whereas other countries like United Kingdom or Australia, I know, and Canada, this is much more developed. This is an international initiative which tries to standardize the different level of texture modified foods, so that in every country around the globe, everybody talks about the same. And what we can do is, with our products, we can cover all levels of this initiative, which no other company can at the moment. Not many people know that when a person receives tube feeding, that this is the most severe form of dysphagia. So the people concerned, they often have no taste experience for months and suffer from dry mouth. With the aid of modern food technology, one can transform any liquid food into a bath foam-like foam, as you can see on the picture. And it's taken away with a spoon and put on the tongue of the person concerned. And it explodes with no swallowing needed. So it's on 1 tablespoon, you have maybe 2 milliliters of liquid. So it's gone when you put it on the mouth and there's no need to swallow. But it supports the saliva production and gives the person's concerned taste experience back. So this can be done with a simple apple juice, but as well as with a fish soup. You can do that with wine or even with mouthwash. It doesn't matter. It works with all kind of liquid food. Then what is most commonly done in care homes in Germany is the thickening of food. So thickening of food and beverage means, taking the example of an apple juice, by adding a thickener, you turn this apple juice into a honey-like consistency to allow the controlled flow of the liquid into the stomach and to avoid that any liquid gets into the trachea. But there are many differences between thickeners for food, and modern thickeners should fulfill the following criteria. First of all, it should not show any post-thickening. So, which means that once you have decided which consistency is needed for the person concerned, the consistency should stay as long as you are allowed to consume the beverage or the food. So even after 3 hours, the consistency or longer, the consistency should not change. It shall be amylase resistant. This is an enzyme in the mouse saliva which can destroy, for example, the starch in starch-based thickeners. This is often relevant for people who have dementia because they re-swallow the food back into the mouth and the food remains there for more than a minute before it's finally swallowed. And during this time, starch-based thickeners will re-dilute again. And you don't have what you wanted, that you have a thickened liquid anymore. As I said before, food is the most important part of the daily life, and therefore one should try to keep the food, the modified food, as authentic as possible. So therefore modern thickeners should not have any impact on the appearance and taste of the liquid or the soup or whatever. Reliability. I mean, only in Germany, one estimates that more than 500,000 beverages are served every day, which are thickened in one way or the other. So there is really the risk that things are done wrong, and there are many things done wrong in this field, we know from experience. Therefore, a product, a thickener, should be reliable and should contain always a dosing spoon with dosing instructions to ensure that the nurses who serve the food have only count the dosing spoons to achieve the correct result. So, and only thickeners who are based on xanthan or who contain xanthan fulfill all these criteria. You can see in the glasses here on the right, you don't see any difference between a thickened food and a non-thickened food. So there's even tap water thickened. It looks like normal water and it tastes like normal water. Before people receive tube feeding, they usually need porridge type food. which often does not look very appealing and is not very tasty. Or it's made on milk soup or milk rice here in Germany. But with the help of modern food technology, another food form is possible, what is called foam food. So here, again, one can transform any liquid food or liquidized food into a soft ice cream consistency. So you see some nice examples. For example, you can puree cucumber or tomato salad, add a certain texturizer, put that into a cream whipper or an electrical blender, and you have a cucumber salad or tomato salad which tastes like the original, but which dilutes in the mouth and can be eaten by people who have a severe impact by dysphagia. So, and again, thanks to the modern texturizers, the food doesn't play a role. It works with any kind of food. It just has to be liquid or liquefied. What is the most important part of the daily nutrition is the main course at lunch in Germany. And at the moment, often the food is just blended with an electrical blender in one pot and served with a spoon. So, which is not very visually appealing. I will show you later some pictures. It can be done much better. Generally, there are basic requirements for pureed food, which means, first of all, it should be piece-free as possible. It should be able to be destroyed without teeth, just with the tongue under the palate. In an ideal case, the meal should be authentic in taste and appearance. And if possible, the residents should receive the same meal as the healthy ones during lunch. And this is possible. So the picture on the left shows you how it's still very common to be done, to be served pureed food in Germany. So this is a beef roulade with white cabbage and potato puree, whereas the white cabbage and the potato puree are blended in once. It doesn't look very appealing. More and more people tend to serve the food with 3 different balloons on a plate to separate between the potato puree, the vegetable, and the meat with the help of an ice spoon. But thanks to the help of modern texturizers and silicone molds, you can copy the original food so that usually you cannot see any optical difference between a pureed food and a normal food. So on the right-hand side, you see the famous German currywurst, curry sausage with fried potatoes. These are some more examples of what is possible. So, as I said before, the food shall be authentic in appearance, taste, and color. It should have a high nutritional value because it's based on a puree. One can add nutrients like high valuable oil or butter to fortify the food. Then, of course, in a daily operation of a care home kitchen, there's not so much time to prepare this food, so therefore the preparation should be easy, fast, and standardized. It shall be able to be produced in stock and rapidly available and ready to serve. It shall be able to be reheated in any kind of environment, whether a steam oven, a conventional oven, or microwave. because often the people concerned wake up a little bit later than the normal ones and ask for something to eat. And then the chefs shall be able to prepare a plate which can be reheated in the microwave at patient's bed. Since 6 years now, it's also we are also able to produce texture modified bread, cakes and pies. So because breakfast in Germany is a very important
Excuse me, Mr. Kück, your video is off, so can you please turn it on?
Oh, its video is off. Oh, sorry. Yes. So now, sorry. Yes. So breakfast is
sorry to interrupt
as important
again.
as the main course in Germany.
Off.
And Germany is a country of bread. We have more than 3,000 different breads recipes in Germany. And the standard today still is in Germany that the people concerned from dysphagia are being served with a bread soup or with milk rice or with any other kind of porridge for the morning. Since 6 years, this is now not anymore needed. One can prepare texture modified bread based on the bread available in the care home. The bread you can produce is based on the bread available, which is being dried, pureed, and then reassembled with the help of a texturizer. The result is a sliced and spreadable bread, which is based on the bread available in the institution, so therefore it has the same taste. But when you put that into the mouth, it dilutes pH3. There's no risk for choking. And one nice side effect is that it has a very high protein content, which has a technical background. So the result is a bread which has more than 30% more protein than a normal bread from bakery. So, however, all this what I have shown, or most of it has to be prepared by the kitchen staff. But without the close collaboration between housekeeping, nursing, and the kitchen, the implementation of smooth food in an institution will fail. The close collaboration is really a must for successful nutritional management of dysphagia. One has to keep in mind that food is much more than just nutrition. It is an important social element in the residents' daily routine. And of course, adequate nutrition has a fundamental influence on the quality of life of the residents, not only nutritionally, but also mentally. And we as a company took part in several scientific studies which showed that food products... So, sorry, what's wrong here? What is with the video? So, sorry. Okay, I will repeat the summary. So, for successful management of dysphagia, the close collaboration between the housekeeping, sorry for the inconvenience caused, I don't know why the camera always turns off, but now it should work. So again, for a successful nutritional management of dysphagia, a close collaboration between housekeeping, nursing, and the kitchen is essential. Because only the nurses know really the needs of the people concerned and can report that back into the kitchen. Whereas they are responsible also for the serving of the food. Therefore, it is important that it's not being destroyed by a spoon by the nurses, because then the kitchen will give up this nice presentation as shown before. One has to keep in mind that food is much more than just nutrition. It is an important social element in the residents' daily routine. And adequate nutrition has a fundamental impact on the quality of life of the residents, not only nutritionally, but also mentally. And finally, we took place in several scientific studies from different universities here in Germany, as well as in Europe, which showed as a result that people who being served with people with dysphagia, which are being served with smooth food based products, eat much more than normal people who receive porridge type food and gained a significant weight. In one study, the gained weight was an average by 1.5 kilo in 6 weeks. So thank you very much. I welcome any questions which may appear.
Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Kück. Despite the technical issues you had, it was very meaningful for us to have it. And if there is any question from our online participants, please leave them on the chat. And again, I see lots of questions, but if we can proceed with the Q&A session right away, let us have a question from Mahoro Patience from the Food Industry Promotional Agency of Korea. Good afternoon, Mahoro.
Good afternoon.
Yes, please deliver your question or comment.
Yes, I hope everybody's hearing me. Are you hearing me easily?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes. Yes, first of all, I would like to thank and congratulate Biozoon and their representative, Matthias Kück, for this dedication to improving the quality of life for senior people suffering from dysphagia. Yes, and it's I think their expertise and the insights are really invaluable and impressive. But throughout the presentation, a question was keeping coming up to my mind regarding the technology and the science behind this smooth food concept. So I would like Matthias Kück to a little bit elaborate more about the technology and science behind the texturizers used in this smooth food concept. Also, how they maintained the food's taste and nutritional value of the food. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I try to keep it simple. So the smooth food concept is based on modern texturizing agents. Texturizers, or called also texturizers. Texturizers are to be found in any industrially produced food, like, for example, yogurts, like ketchup, like industrially produced bread, like in sausages. And our know-how lies in the special combination of different texturizers for a certain application. So that means in order to prepare a foam food, we have a blend of 4 different texturizers, which are cellulose, xanthan gum, maltodextrin, and some iota-carrageenan. So all these are known in supermarket food. So iota-carrageenan, for example, is to be found in industrial ice cream. It's based on algae. It's a hydrocolloid based on algae, and develops the foam structure in combination with cellulose. Cellulose is to be found in, for example, mayonnaise or in salad sauces. And the function of xanthan gum in this blend is to avoid any water release from the foam. And so we have for any special type of food, so for pureed food, we have a different blend of texturizers than for the bread, then for the foam, then for the thickening of liquids. And everybody of us consumes this kind of texturizers on a daily basis because they are found in any industrial-based food product.
Thank you for your answer.
Okay, I hope it answered the question well. And thank you once again, Mr. Matthias Kück, for sharing helpful information on smooth food, which is a modern nutritional concept for frail and elderly people. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And let us move on to the third presentation, which will be on the alternative food. Dr. Emma Sidgwick, who's an internationalization manager of Flanders Food from Belgium, she'll talk about unlocking and scaling the protein shift, our contribution as agri-food cluster in Flanders. Please welcome Dr. Emma Sidgwick.
Thank you very much. Thank you for the warm welcome, and thank you very much also for the invitation to this online conference. It's an honor to be here. We have been participating as clusters, Flanders Food and Foodpolis, within the context of the Global Future Project, so I'm really happy to be here today. My talk focuses indeed on how, as a cluster, we can contribute to the protein shift transition. So I will focus more, not so much on end products, but rather on methodologies that we as a cluster apply to help our member companies to innovate towards the protein shift. So I hope very much that my presentation will be valuable to you. I will focus more precisely today on why and how, as a cluster organization, we drafted together with our member companies, scientists, and captains of society a protein shift roadmap. I will also detail which concrete collaborative innovation projects resulted from that roadmap. And finally, I will focus, thirdly, on how we also put effort in supporting the scaling of resulting protein shift innovations and how we try to overcome market barriers such as access to finance, barriers related to internationalization, and public acceptance. So let me start with a short introduction to Flanders Food. We are the strategic innovation platform for the agri-food industry in Flanders, Belgium, and we are recognized by the Flemish government as one of the so-called spearhead clusters, organizations that should drive innovation in certain sectors. It is our mission, indeed, to support the Flemish food industry via research and innovation in retaining and strengthening competitiveness on both the local and foreign markets. And via innovation, we also support food companies in taking on societal challenges, such as those in the domain of the protein shift. What is really important is that we are a membership-driven organization, so we work for and together with companies from the food processing industry primordially. And you see on the right side of the slide our board of directors, amongst which you see many companies featured. We also have Cargill in there. We have also companies that may not be so known to you, but Paratus, for example, is quite a big ingredient supplier for the bakery industry here in Flanders. So it's a mix of SMEs, larger corporates, and smaller companies together with universities featured in our advisory board. Just a quick note on Flanders. So Flanders is a region in Belgium, a tiny country, I have to admit, in Europe, but we are at the heart of Europe. We have a good connection to other European markets, so we're quite centrally located, and many foreign companies come to Belgium to conduct consumer tests, for example. The Flemish food industry is quite important in terms of euros revenue, euros investment, jobs, and the number of employers that we have in our region in the food industry. As a cluster organization, we can tap cluster-specific capacities and assets that we gear towards supporting the food industry in increasing and gaining competitiveness. We have among 286 member companies in our membership base. Besides that, we have universities, other types of organizations. So we actually have different actors convening in our membership. We focus very much on setting up subsidized, funded collaboration projects. And in 2023, we had 72 projects of this type running in the organization that are projects funded by the Flemish government or funded by the European Commission. We also have a nice network of pilot infrastructure, which is also accessible to foreign companies, so not only for Flemish companies. And we have 4 types of pilot infrastructure. So if any one of you would like to receive more information on that, you can also contact me, of course, after the presentation. Before I kick off with the focus on the protein shift, I have to detail a little bit how we work at Flanders Food. So how do we decide upon what we are going to focus on with our members? Everything that we do starts from 4 strategic domains. So we have 2 knowledge-driven domains, and we have 2 action-oriented business-driven domains. You see that we have a domain focusing on lead to knowledge, meaning that we try to bring state-of-the-art knowledge to the companies via events, projects, newsletters. We have a domain focusing also on strategic and fundamental research and development. And in that strategic domain, we initiate collaborative research projects with at least 3 companies. We have a domain focusing also on individual business support. So there we work with individual companies and see whether we can provide them with advice on product development, technical processes, etc. And we also guide them to our pilot infrastructure. Finally, we also focus on cross-sectoral collaborations, and there we're really going to work across sectors. So it is about forging collaboration across, for example, the food industry and the healthcare sector. So very much aligned, let's say, with what the former speaker, Matthias Kück, came to tell during his presentation. Now, the 2 knowledge-driven domains, they focus on 4 thematic programs. We have the thematic program New and Shifting Resources. We have the program World-Class Food Production. And we have also Resilient and Sustainable Agri-Food Systems and Personalized Foods and Healthy Diets. So these are the 4 thematics that we work on within our organization. Now, in each of these thematic programs, we develop strategic roadmaps. And these roadmaps are actually strategic research agendas within a 10-year scope. So I will just show them per program. So in New and Shifting Resources, we have a roadmap focusing on protein shift. We have one on byproducts, so everything that has to do with the valorization of side streams. In Personalized Foods and Healthy Diets, we have one on nutrition, one on healthcare. And you see in World-Class Food Production, we have 4 roadmaps on food safety, food processing, food packaging of the future, and eco-production. And within Resilient and Sustainable Agri-Food Systems, the roadmaps are more value chain and product oriented. So today in my presentation, I will focus on this roadmap geared towards the protein shift. These roadmaps, as I said earlier, are really developed together with captains of industry, so with our member companies, with lead scientists and captains of society. And in these roadmaps, we set out the different concepts that we want to work on within a time horizon of 10 years. So let me go indeed into detail into the protein shift roadmap, which is for us a strategic instrument to unlock protein shift innovations together with our companies. Before we start, just a small note on how we look at the protein shift. So we distinguish indeed between making traditional animal proteins and feed production more sustainable on the one hand. And on the other hand, we also look, of course, at diversifying the protein supply. Diversification includes focusing on cellular proteins, which is really a strong focus today in Flanders, on novel animal proteins, which has lost a little bit of its focus here in Flanders and I think in Europe at large. Vegetable proteins, still very much important, and proteins derived from side streams, also a very important topic here in Flanders. This distinction has also been adopted in the Flemish protein strategy of the Flemish government. In the next slide, you see a visual representation of the protein shift roadmap. The overall objective of the roadmap is indeed to unlock and accelerate the protein shift in Flanders. There was a demand from our member companies to work on a collaborative roadmap, to sit together and decide upon what are the concepts, topics, and innovations that we have to focus on in the coming 10 years. There was also a request from the Flemish government because they also wanted to accelerate the protein shift in Flanders. So we have a mandate from the food industry and from the government to push this forward. This roadmap, as I already briefly mentioned, consists of a series of concepts that delineate the different pathways that the innovation ecosystem actors should follow to accomplish the protein shift over a time horizon of 10 years. Within every concept, we initiate projects that tackle underlying challenges and needs. So that's how we look at these protein shift roadmaps. This is a slide giving an overview on the 7 concepts within the roadmap. I will quickly walk you through them. The first concept is protein crops. It's about the identification, cultivation, and adaptation of protein-rich crops. A second concept is Novo-Pro. It's about the cultivation and processing opportunities for new protein sources. Then we have X-Pro, which is all about the optimization of protein extraction processes from different types of protein sources. Then I go on down, and there you see the concept Reuse It, which is about the reuse of byproducts for and from protein production. Funky protein has everything to do with research into the functionality and key properties of protein structure. Pro formula development and formulation of new high-quality protein-rich consumer products. And then finally, we have one on society, where we try to also work on the protein shift in a broader socio-economic context, because of course, if we do not have the mandate from the consumer to develop new products in this area, we will not grow the market, of course, for these products. I'm not going to focus on all the concepts today. I will just highlight some of the concepts in which we gain most traction, and I will list a couple of projects that we work on just by way of example. So we have many more projects, of course, per concept. Within the concept of protein crops, so we have projects such as, for example, Crop Explore. So it's often projects that we do together also with universities and research organizations. In Crop Explore, we really try to explore, as the title says, alternative plant sources for application in the food sector. We continued the project in Crop Explore for farmers, and there we mapped the potential of more than 200 arable crops within the Flemish bioeconomy. And crops that were very important in that study, in that project, were Dieder, Yacon, and hemp as demonstration cases. Other projects focus, for example, on the cultivation and processing of duckweed, on how we can make quinoa profitable and conventional crop in Flanders, or how we can have sustainable and profitable soybean cultivation in Flanders. So you see here, these type of projects are very much crop-oriented. If we look at the concept Novo-Pro, which is about finding new protein sources, there we have projects such as, for example, hydrogen to protein, where we have examined hydrogen as an energy carrier for the production of high-quality microbial proteins for application in foodstuffs. We had a project on the assessment of microbial protein sources for food and feed. We had one project also on cellular meat, focusing on a replacement for foie gras, because foie gras is still something that is a lot eaten in France, of course, but also in Belgium. And we had also several other projects that really focus on the cultivated meat domain. More in Novopo, we had some projects where we also worked on insects, but I have to say that this has now more little focus in Europe at the moment. So I think there is too much consumer resistance to have really a growth market there. We have also worked on microalgae, I think as many clusters in Europe, so that was also one of our projects. When we look at XPro, so projects about how we can optimize extraction processes from different types of protein sources, we had a project such as, for example, FSEP, where we studied the efficient separation of macro components in biomass by combining unit operations. We also, in the TexProSoy project, did research into the impact of processing steps on the technical, functional, and nutritional properties of soy protein. We have also set up a plant protein pilot, so a separate pilot line where the entire process from protein-rich vegetable raw material to extruded product can be carried out. And then Profuno focused also on alternative protein sources for meat analogues. ProFormula, which is about the development of new high-quality protein-rich consumer products, there we also had 3 projects. And these focus always on substitution of animal by plant proteins in meat products. There is still a large market for that in Flanders and Europe, so these projects we continue to engage with them. So this is just a snapshot of the roadmap that we developed of the resulting collaborative innovation projects. And I just wanted to highlight now that in terms of technologies, there is currently really a strong focus. There was already a strong focus, but it gained more traction in the past year on biomass fermentation and again, precision fermentation. Biomass fermentation, where we indeed talk about where we are using microorganisms cultured and culture them as alternative protein source. We mostly look at bacteria, microalgae, yeast, and fungi. We also call it single cell protein. I don't know how that is in Korea, but we also use this term sometimes. And we use the whole cells most of the time. Here you get a brief insight into the substrates that we use for single cell protein production. We use high energy resources, renewable plant sources, carbon dioxide, and various side streams. So that's a bit the overview of what is at stake in Flanders at the moment. What do we think is really the benefit of this biomass fermentation? It is the high protein content, high nutritional value, rapid growth, the independence of climate seasons, which becomes very important also here in Flanders, very space efficient and less water use, and a lot of possibilities, of course, in terms of application. And at the bottom, you see a couple of companies from Flanders working on biomass fermentation. Second technology gaining importance is precision fermentation, where we indeed use program microorganisms to produce specific functional ingredients. We often use genetic engineering techniques, but very important for the European market, the modified organisms are not in the final product. So the functional ingredient is not considered a GMO. This is still important in the European market because there was a lot of consumer resistance to GMOs. At the moment, the European Commission is trying to refine its legislation. And for example, there's a new legislation on NGTs, new genomic techniques, and they will draft an alternative legislation around this. Why do we focus so much on precision fermentation? It's because of the known advantages, efficient production, animal friendly, less land use, and of course the fact that you can produce very specific functional ingredients. Below you see a couple of companies from Flanders that work with precision fermentation. Now I just wanted to highlight, I see that I have, I think, 5 minutes left, and I just wanted to quickly highlight that we also work on the scaling of the protein shift innovation. So development is one thing, but creating a market for them is something else. And in Europe, in Flanders, we have still a lot of market barriers connected to access to finance, internationalization, and public acceptance. One of the projects that I want to highlight here is the Global Future Project. We have collaborated with Foodpolis within the context of that project. What we want to do there is work on the internationalization of protein shift innovations. Why? Not only for market access, but also in view of knowledge exchange, because we still need a lot of knowledge in Europe and perhaps also vice versa. So the scope was really like, how can we work with innovation actors in a couple of target countries, exchange knowledge, and also make sure that we can match companies for further collaboration. So that was very important for us. And we very much hope that we can continue the partnerships that we established there, and that we can really work from a win-win perspective in that sense. That was the goal. We have another project which is still running, so Global Future is finished, but we try to continue it. Biotech for Food is another project. It's a project funded by the European Commission, and there we really focus on the acceleration of new promising circular agri-food value chains and sustainable bio-industrial interregional investment. And a sub-segment of this project is also focusing on protein shift innovations. What we concretely want to do is incentivize the food processing industry to look more at biotech solutions, because currently there can still be a resistance, and we want really to harness the collaboration potential between biotech companies and the food processing industry. This is a European project, so we work with different clusters and research and technology organizations. So it's different European clusters working together. We have industrial partners in the project, which are basically companies such as Avecom and Calidris Bio are two Flemish companies in the project that can offer biotech solutions. The project goals are threefold. First of all, we want to identify the barriers to implementation of biotech solutions in the food processing industry. So what are the barriers and how can we overcome them? Thirdly, we want to give support to companies to bring to the market their biotech solutions to concrete challenges of agri-food companies. And we also want to increase the capacities of less developed and transition regions in Europe. So that's very important for the European Commission, that we also take along regions that may not have been so high on the innovation score list, let's say. A final project, and then I will conclude my presentation, is the B-Trust project, which recently kicked off as well, another European project. And there we really work on public acceptance. How can we increase consumer trust in biotech innovations, in alternative protein innovations, so that they have more market potential? Again, we work with different European clusters, and we also work with two life sciences organizations from Flanders. What we want to do there is we want to work on decision making together with consumers. So consumers in Europe are often ill-informed, and we have to work on consumer transparency and information. We have to be more clear and speak in non-scientific language about the risks and benefits of biotech innovations, including alternative proteins. So what we do here is that we run a series of co-creation workshops together with consumers and other impacted actors, such as farmers, to see how they perceive the risks and benefits of biotech innovations. This is the B-Trust methodology, but I'm not going to dwell on that very much longer, because I see that my time is up. Maybe just one final slide. So in that project, we focus on 6 biotech co-creation cases that we will work on with consumers and other actors. And you see also that we have 2 cases here that are related to the alternative protein sector. So we have one case on cell factories, everything that has to do with food ingredients, additives obtained to precision fermentation. And then we have one which we call eating the cells, which is about cultivated meat. And here I conclude my presentation. I hope it was interesting to you, and I hope we can continue our collaboration in the future. Thank you very much.
Yes, so Dr. Sidgwick, thank you very much for your insightful presentation. And ladies and gentlemen, if there is any question regarding the presentation, please use the chat. And before moving on to the Q&A session, Dr. Sidgwick, because the question will be delivered in Korean, if you can find the interpretation function from Zoom and choose English, you can listen to the English translated version.
Yes, I'll put it on.
Okay, thank you. With that, why don't we ask Director Kim Jong-hoon from Intake for further question or comments? Good afternoon, Mr. Director Kim.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yes, please proceed with the question.
Thank you, Dr. Sidgwick, for your thoughtful session. And I just wonder, I think the driving force
Sorry,
of
I don't hear you very well. Is there something with the sound? Sorry.
Okay. How can I say you some more clearly? Can you hear me?
Yes,
Okay.
now I hear you
Thank you.
better.
Thank you for your thoughtful session. And I think the driving force of the protein shifting is the climate crisis. So it just emerged in 2010, and now it just goes to the peak, and it seems a bit slowed down. And I just wonder why we are having like slow down. Even the climate crisis is even the harder than before. But I think so. I just thought of the Gartner hype cycle, like all the technique goes high and peak and just come down. And when we have to just overcome the chasm, then we can go to the further just industrial things. So I just wonder, do you think we are on the like downturn or just upturn of the just chasm? And I think we need some breakthrough for the like shifting. Everyone knows that it's important, and just climate crisis is important, but still the shifting seems quite how can I say timid than the treatment. So what do you think? Just internal and the external factor we have to make some breakthrough of the protein shifting, because you already had 5 years of the just program, right? So
Yep. Thank you very much for that very valuable question. Well, I can only speak for Flanders and Europe. I don't have a global view on it. But if I look at Flanders, so it's in terms of market growth for the protein shift. So it's not that we really had a slowdown, but we also didn't see the expected market growth. Which is true. So it's taking longer than we expected. And I think hurdles or barriers in Flanders and perhaps in the European market at large, it's still very much the quality of the alternative products. So we are still looking for the right taste and texture. We are not there yet. If you look at the products that are in the supermarket in Belgium, in Flanders, it is not up to the level that we need to really make the protein shift work. So we really need to work on product development still. We have to work also on price setting. Because, and then I come to your other question, we still have the climate crisis and we don't see translated into consumer behavior. There is still very much an intention action gap in consumer behavior in Belgium. They are aware of the climate crisis, but it doesn't translate in consumer behavior. When they are in the shop and they buy in the store, it's still about price and what they know. But one positive point, and I think we will get there in the end in Flanders in Europe, is that we see now that it are the bigger companies that are starting to work on protein shift innovations. So while before in Flanders, Belgium and Europe, it were mostly startups, smaller SMEs, they didn't realize economies of scale. They did not always develop end products with the requested taste and texture. And I think there is now a move that really bigger companies are starting to work with what they have developed, the startups, and will continue through on it. So I think they will improve the product development now. They can also put economies of scale behind it. So maybe that is another lever for the protein shift. But it's true that it's really taking a very long time, also here in Flanders, in Belgium. But we have the bigger companies, and we have also many studies that indicate that people want to replace meat with alternative protein products. For example, there was a recent study amongst Belgian consumers, and 4 in 10 of the people eating meat, they want to eat less meat. So I think it is a matter of improving the products that are on the shelves and improving the price, and maybe the bigger companies will solve that issue. So that would be my response. I hope that's sufficient.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Sidgwick, for providing us various and abundant information on Belgium's food shift as agri-food cluster. Thank you very much. And let us now move on to the final presentation today, which is about eco-friendly food. Environmental Impact Service lead Jay Nien of Switzerland's Bühler Group will present about Simplify Eco-Friendly Journey. Please kindly understand that this presentation is pre-recorded due to circumstances.
Hello, my name is Jay Nien. I work for the Bühler Group. At Bühler, I lead our environmental impact services for the group. And today I'm doing a recording for the 14th International Conference on Future Food. My apologies that I can't be there in person to give this presentation, but hopefully this still serves as a good substitute. Today I'd like to introduce you to Bühler, who we are as a company. I'll talk about what sustainability means to us, how we're trying to look at sustainability, how we're reducing our own environmental footprint, and in particular, how we're trying to use our technology and our services to help companies all over the world quantify, understand, report, and reduce their environmental footprint. So firstly, a quick introduction to Bühler. Bühler is a company, a part of everyday life of billions of people. You will come into contact with food, feed, and materials processed by our customers right from when you get up in the morning until the end of the day. You see on screen the iPhone, so the glass that might be coated on our technology, or the pigments and the inks in things like lipsticks or money. Food is a key part of our business, cereals, grains, that you see, and also in the feed industry for pet food, for animal feed. You see on screen some of the plant-based meats, a key trend driving sustainability. And at the end of the day, maybe one of the beers, that malt has been processed through our technology. So the 3 key areas of our business: we are a technology and solutions provider for food, grains, pulses, rice, maize, etc., all the key staple foods, in feed for animals, but also for fish feed, insects, pet food, and in advanced materials. So looking at things like die-casted parts for cars, thin film coatings, inks, paints, and also batteries. And across these industries, we in fact estimate that approximately 2 billion people are fed per day with food and feed processed on our equipment, and almost 1 billion people per day travel in vehicles with materials that have been processed through our equipment. And this is why sustainability is such an important topic for the Bühler Group. With such a wide and global impact, we have an enormous opportunity, but also a responsibility to make sure that these materials are processed in a sustainable way so that we can help sustainable businesses and also reduce the environmental footprint of the products and solutions that are then processed through our technology. So let's now take a look at, or a closer look at sustainability and what it means for us. Our company purpose, Innovations for a Better World, is absolutely linked to our sustainability commitment, which for us means balancing the needs of economy, nature, and humanity in every decision. So it doesn't mean that everything that we do is every time optimized for environmental sustainability, because if it's not something that's economically sustainable, then by nature, it's not sustainable over the long term. So that's why we always look at economy, helping the companies we work with sustainable, profitable growth, enabling them. Nature, we see everything talking about CO2 emissions, but there are many aspects to nature, biodiversity, different environmental metrics, and of course, humanity as well. So making sure that the companies we work with help to provide safe, affordable nutrition, sustainable mobility, and also our impact in education, and training really all over the world. So today I'll deep dive a little bit more on the environmental aspects of sustainability, but it's certainly not to forget that sustainability covers many different topics. And here we see a couple of areas where environmental sustainability really comes hand in hand with, let's say, more humanitarian topics, looking at things like food security and a sustainable food supply. And these are some of the areas that we're also working in that go much beyond environmental sustainability or eco-friendly sustainability, and really look at things like food security. So really using things like grain storage to make sure that we have a secure food supply, or supporting companies that make huge processing plants like food parks to feed large populations. We're seeing other trends like ancient grains, which help us to process grains locally. And of course, how we bring the industry together and make sure that companies have the right training so that they can really process these materials securely as well as sustainably. But as we deep dive a little bit further on nature, here are some of the commitments from the Bühler Group focusing on nature. Firstly, we commit to have solutions ready to multiply by 2025 that reduce energy, waste, and water in our customers' value chains. And I'll show you more about what that means and some examples of solutions and how we quantify the sustainability impact of all of the key products processed through our technology. We also have to look at how we support our customers to measure and reduce greenhouse gases. So oftentimes our customers, more than 90% of their own scope 1 and 2 carbon emissions are from running our technology, and our technology can not only help them to quantify and reduce their, let's say, scope 1 and 2, but also upstream their scope 3 and their downstream impact as well. It's important that as Bühler, we are also looking at our own environmental footprint, so we proactively collaborate with our supply chain to make sure that we reduce the footprint of the machines that we supply. And also we have a commitment to reduce our scope 1 and 2 emissions by 60%, also reducing the footprint of the machines that we supply. And lastly, and really something we're exploring through partnerships, is the topic of biodiversity. This is something that we see growing in importance, and we're looking at how we can protect and restore biodiversity as well. So diving a little bit deeper, our sustainability commitments, yes, they cover our own sites and operations, but really the largest impact that we have and the big lever that we have are the plants and the machines that are processing materials day in, day out. That's why we have commitments on our own assets, but also that commitment to focus and support on our customers to measure and reduce their greenhouse gases and look at how we can reduce energy waste and water in the value chain by 50%. Now, if we look at this in terms of numbers, we've put on the screen here our own carbon footprint, the carbon footprint of our upstream supply chain, so typically a lot of the metal and materials required to make machines. But really the biggest part of our carbon footprint is the use of our products, so our customers using our machines. And this is orders of magnitude higher than our own carbon footprint. And that's why we have both sets of goals to look at our own emissions, our own carbon footprint, but also supporting our customers, because that's the biggest lever that we have in terms of acting on climate change and helping to contribute to the world reducing greenhouse gas emissions. So in a bit more detail, here is our own carbon footprint. We publish this every year in our annual report. You can see there that we have our scope 1 and 2. This is the footprint that we have, typically the electricity and gas in our factories worldwide. We have the footprint of our upstream supply chain, which is one order of magnitude bigger than the footprint of our operations, typically the materials we need to make machinery. But really that downstream is in the order of magnitude of millions of tons, and it's much, much bigger than, let's say, the footprint required to make machinery. And it's the use of the flour mills or the machines in the flour mills that are making flour or pasta or wafer or any of those products that I showed earlier in the industries where we are processing. So firstly, it's important that as Bühler, we also walk the talk. So what are one or two things that we are doing and how are we progressing towards our scope 1 and 2 target of reducing our emissions by 60%? Well, I'm glad to say that we are so far on track. We've quantified our emissions and our baseline year is 2019. And so far we see a reduction of about 19% compared to our jump off point, our base year on our journey to targeting 60% emissions. Some of the actions that you see here on screen are helping us to do that. So we have a quantification across the entire company. We know where our carbon footprint comes from, and we're making investments like solar panels, upgrading heating systems, air conditioning systems, or retrofits, installations, more efficient lighting, more efficient machines in the factory, all over the world, all over our manufacturing facilities, and also our other sales and service offices to make sure that we can hit our target to reduce 60% by 2030. But as I mentioned, if we look at the impact of our own carbon footprint versus what we can do for the companies that are using our machine, or let's say the use of our sold products, the order of magnitude is much, much bigger for what we can do in terms of helping our customers. And that's really where I want to focus the presentation now. So if we look at the innovations and the new technologies that we supply, they have a much bigger magnitude, particularly when you look at the scale of processing. And there are some examples that you see here on the screen. Across the group, we have many different solutions for roasting, toasting, drying, etc. And there is one example where one of our roasting units, up to 50% less energy, is helping companies using that nut roaster reduce their footprint by 50%. And we have many such examples across the group. We also can look at things like when we coat glass, what's the impact on an entire building, helping our customer's customer to then reduce the footprint of their building in operation. And if we look at just how many emissions that is with the volume of glass coated worldwide, that's also a huge impact. Sustainability also means how can we look at different categories of products? So every time that we can help companies to make a plant-based meat versus regular meat, then we know that the footprint of meat is high, but we then enable that category shift so we can drop the footprint of the foods eaten by consumers, and plant-based meat is a great example of that. One key aspect of Bühler is that we estimate that we have access to approximately 1 billion tons of side streams that are processed on our machinery. If you think of processing wheat, approximately 20% ends up in bran, which is not wasted, it goes to the animal industry and is animal feed. But how can we try and bring more of these side streams, some of which are waste, some of them are in different industries, back into the food industry and adhere to the hierarchy of circular economy. So bringing them back so that we can feed people with some of these materials. So circular economy is really a key aspect for us, and that starts with reducing waste and then trying to bring materials back into the industry. So circular economy is also a key topic for us, and there are many different examples of circular economy all across our company in both organic and technical materials. So for ingredients that cannot be brought back because of contamination, for example, we can use them as energy for biomass. We're also in the insect processing industry. Insects can then recycle food waste or feed streams and then provide high quality nutrition to animals, replacing things like fish feed. And a key aspect of circular economy is just preventing waste. And that's where things like our optical sorting machines are increasing the yield because they are accurate in terms of removing defective grains or grains that we don't want in the mass stream, and therefore we're trying to reduce waste before that waste even occurs. On the technical side, we're also looking at how we can use like remanufacturing to reduce the need for virgin metals and trying to enable a circular economy by using metals in our processes. How can we use secondary alloys, recycled alloys, etc.? So circular economy is indeed an important topic in this area as well. So now one of the key things that we do across the company, and this is where my team and I really focus, is looking at the sustainability impact of all of our technologies. So what we do is we look at the environmental footprint of all key products processed by Bühler technology, wheat, pasta, for an example, and we look at the entire value chain. And then what's the impact of different solutions and how is that solution helping to reduce the footprint of that product? And you can see here some examples on screen. We have new grinding systems that are reducing energy by 10%, sometimes more, and we can calculate for a typical line, that means that we're avoiding 200 tons of CO2 equivalent per year. I've already talked about the optical sorting example. By reducing false rejects by up to 50%, then in fact, eliminating that waste, we can save even more, potentially 650 tons of carbon in a typical milling line with an optical sorting unit every year. Another example there is the die casting unit. The addition of a servo drive saves energy and it saves carbon. So we have this extensive quantification program that helps us to understand the sustainability impact of machinery. We look not only at things like CO2 equivalent, but also circular economy and other key important metrics: agricultural land occupation, water depletion, waste, and of course the impact on the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, because this is how it puts sustainability in the broader context. Because as I said at the beginning, sustainability is not just environment, it's not just CO2 emissions, it's really that broader picture: food security, food safety, economy, nature, and humanity. Another big lever for us is our services. So we might supply machinery into the food industry, and then over time that machinery decreases in efficiency. That's absolutely natural. So then our services can help with retrofits, installations, assessments, or maybe electrification, digital services, all to help companies measure and reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. And in fact, my team and I provide services in sustainability. So we work with the Bühler service team to help companies measure their environmental footprint, understand their environmental footprint, and also reduce it. And there are some of the examples that you see on screen: companies looking to quantify their greenhouse gas footprint and companies looking to quantify the environmental footprint of individual products. And that's really the purpose of our sustainability services, is that we believe sustainability should be quantified. And if we can help the companies that we work with to build a competitive advantage out of sustainability, reducing energy cost, increasing yield, but also then looking at how can they sell sustainable products at a premium. If we can make sustainability something that's profitable, then it will scale to the level that we need to actually reduce greenhouse gas emissions in order to stay in line with the Paris Agreement with the 1.5 degrees, which is looking unlikely, but we need to do as much as we possibly can. So as I mentioned earlier, in our sustainability services, we help companies to quantify their environmental footprint, to understand where these emissions come from, to report their results, and to reduce their footprint, taking actions with the fastest return on investment first. More concretely, what that means is things like Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3 assessments in line with the greenhouse gas Protocol, the global reporting standard for measuring and managing greenhouse gas emissions. Looking at product life cycle assessments, what's the environmental footprint of a product, as more companies are being asked for this data as they contribute to the footprint of their customers' products and then what consumers ultimately buy. It also looks at things like reduction strategies, so how can we assess installed assets and not only reduce carbon but also reduce cost, and then combine these assessments with holistic value chain reduction measures, looking at things like adhering to science-based targets as an example. And also all of our quantifications can be certified to the relevant standards so that you can talk about results with confidence. And we also support to then embed this into the company with trainings so that you can really build a holistic climate strategy. I have a couple of example reference cases, and if you go online and look at our website, then you can see these reference cases and many more. We do a lot in the industries where we are present, but it doesn't have to be Bühler machinery and technology. But here's a classic example. This is a mill in Germany where we helped Hamilton Müller to look at the environmental footprint of their products, of the flour and the bran, all the way from farm to factory gate. We were able to provide different comparisons. We're looking at the site carbon footprint and also helped to do a quick analysis of what CO2 neutrality or reducing that footprint really means. We offer this to companies across many different industries. Another example from here in Switzerland is Kagi in the confectionery business. This was a good example where Bühler were on site looking at the different machinery, how to reduce the environmental footprint. We also supply our digital services, looking at things like overall equipment efficiency, energy management, for example, and also then all together helping Kagi look at their scope 1, scope 2, scope 3 emissions, information that within Europe now is regulated. More and more companies have to quantify and publish this type of data. So finally, as I conclude my presentation, I wanted to show you one or two examples of what this really looks like in a project. Of course, every project is much bigger, but what does the carbon footprint look like? This is a typical example, an end result where we looked at the company's scope 1, scope 2 and scope 3 footprint. Of course, this is just a generic example. And you can see already on screen that a company can very quickly get the overview of where their emissions come from, which categories, and you can break that down so you can start to tackle things like your carbon emissions. Our carbon quantification services are available offline, but they're also available online. So we now offer software where companies can access this carbon quantification model through our environmental impact calculator. It becomes easier to copy the carbon footprint from the previous year and then just simply update the figures so that it's very fast, very accurate, and also very easy and visual for you to be able to see your carbon footprint. So in case you're interested in that, you can also get in touch. And finally, I wanted to show an example of a life cycle assessment. So this is again, a general example, but can be made specific within a project. But what does a life cycle assessment look like? This is a typical example in the wheat milling industry. Grains and flours typically follow this curve where the raw materials are quite high. And you can see here that the environmental footprint has been quantified all along the value chain. So starting with raw materials through grain storage, transport, milling, distribution and retail. We're looking here at the CO2 equivalent per ton of wheat flour, but also other metrics. So energy consumption, water depletion, agricultural land occupation, and waste. Now, of course, these numbers will vary depending on the farming practices, the transport distances, the cost of electricity in terms of carbon, which changes all over the world. But this at least hopefully gives you an idea of what a typical life cycle assessment of a product will look like. And this is what we use to quantify the sustainability impact of technology and understand the impact of different technologies and how they can contribute to helping companies to reduce their environmental footprint. So hopefully that gave you an insight into Bühler and what sustainability means for Bühler, how we are trying to quantify the sustainability impact of key products, of key technologies so that we can scale these into the market to really try and achieve what we need to, which is staying in line with the Paris Agreement, which is helping companies with those different dimensions of sustainability, economy, nature, and humanity. I also showed a little bit about our services and how we're helping to inspect, to assess existing assets and then make them more efficient and also more sustainable. And that's one of the fastest routes to impact. We cannot just replace all equipment to make it more sustainable. We also just need to look at exactly what's already there and how we can then make that run as efficiently as possible. And lastly, I showed an insight into our environmental impact services, helping companies to quantify, understand and reduce their environmental footprint. In particular, how we're looking at the greenhouse gas assessment as well as life cycle assessments, bringing some of this online so that companies can really do this for themselves. If you have any questions, then please do get in touch. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. So we've watched Mr. J09's presentation video, and on behalf of the organizers, I'd like to extend my gratitude for his participation through the pre-recorded video. Distinguished guests, please kindly understand we cannot proceed to the live Q&A session for this lecture. So we had this valuable opportunity to hear from our 4 honorable speakers. And on behalf of every participant, I'd like to extend my sincere gratitude to the speakers for delivering informative presentations. There were a number of questions from the chat, but due to the time constraints, we could not respond to every single one of them and would like to ask for your kind understandings once again. This concludes the online seminar of the 14th Foodpolis International Conference. I would like to extend my gratitude to every participant and also the speaker for joining today's event out of the busy schedules. Foodpolis International Conference will make constant effort to share the information on global technology and food trend to be ready for the change in future food industry. I'd like to ask your continuous support and interest for the international conference that will be held in November. Thank you very much once again and have a wonderful rest of the day. Thank you very much.